What's going on, guys? Today we got a complaint of a no start. I got connected to this one and it had fault U02A200, lost communication with reductive quality module, U114600, lost communication with ECM on engine subnet, P021900, engine overspeed condition, P033531, crankshaft position sensor A, no signal, P033900, crankshaft position sensor A, circuit intermittent. And by the looks of those faults, I obviously wanted to start with the crankshaft position fault because that could cause a starting problem for sure. Now right here what I'm doing is I'm checking, making sure the connector is actually plugged into the sensor. It sits right on top of the flywheel housing, which I confirmed, so I started following the harness back, which goes all the way around to the left side of the motor to the ECM connector. And here I checked this wiring right over top of the air compressor because it's known to have a good rub right there. When I push it back here in a second, I noticed, I could see it's already rubbing ahead of time, so that's why I pushed it back to check up under it. And when I checked up under it, you could see like 2 or 3 wires rubbing with showing some bare wire. So I wanted to run a wiggle wire test in Tech Tool to see if any faults would pop back up because they were all inactive at the moment, which you really wouldn't get a crankshaft position sensor fault active unless it's running or trying to crank it. And also here I wanted to point out they left this primer valve lifted up, which can let air seep through, or seep in rather, which is obviously not good for a fuel system, so you want to make sure that's down. Next I wanted to confirm that those wires actually were causing my crankshaft position sensor fault. So here I'm removing this fender liner, which is bolt head's 15 and the nut on the back's 15, so pretty simple. You also don't want to forget there's 2 10 mils that's usually supposed to be mounted right there to hold that thing on. This one only had 1 and it was cracked, so it was barely holding it on anyway. But yeah, just don't forget about those. And as you can see here, anything I usually take out I try to put back right where I got it from. It's just easier for me to keep up with it. I'm not sure how everybody does it, but it just works for me that way. Now here I'm trying to run the wiggle wire test, but unfortunately it didn't pop any faults, like I said, because it's usually when it's trying to crank. I just wanted to see if it would pull up anything else because I had the ACM faults as well, so I didn't know if it had something to do with that or if it was just for the crank position sensor faults. But since that didn't work, I started the unit up, and with it running, I done a wiggle wire test like manually, just wiggling the wire, not really caring about what was on the computer. And when I was doing that, I noticed the truck tried to cut off every time I would lay it right back on the air compressor. When I would take it off, it would fire right back up, like it would try to start itself back up, which tells me it's obviously my crankshaft position sensor issue. Now for these ACM faults, specifically the def quality sensor fault, I wanted to check this ACM fuse at the batteries, which I did, and I confirmed it wasn't blown. I confirmed it's receiving 12 volts on both ends. I then started to inspect this wiring running from around the DPF area in the batteries, going over to the def quality sensor itself, the def pump and def sending unit. And right here I ended up finding a wire that was bare and corroded, which I could feel that it was real weak and the corrosion had spread. I could also tell that a bunch of the wires were like swollen from fluid contamination, I'm guessing. They had a real bad, hydraulic transmission fluid leak. The customer did end up approving the whole quote, so right here I'm going ahead and take this shield off so I can get to the DPF and all, because I put in the CCI that it looked like it was passing soot according to the exhaust stack, because you could tell that it was at least at one time passing to it. So we're going to take it out and check it at least, and if it is bad, we'll get it replaced. And for y'all that don't know what CCI stands for, it stands for Customer Courtesy Inspection. We do it on every truck that we get, just as a check to cover us and to help the customer out if they want the help. Now, unfortunately, I won't be able to get any more footage of this truck because I'm going to class for the whole week, this upcoming week. And I'm sure it'll be done. Somebody will get it done. But I did want to show you me taking this part off and removing the DPF at least. Another thing I wanted to show is too, these temperature sensors, they're color coded, so the inside of the actual temperature sensor connector housing has got a color, usually be gray, black, or green, or white. And the actual chassis harness side of the connector would have the same color, so that way you won't get them mixed up, which is kind of neat. Here I forgot to turn my camera the other way, so we're back to horizontal. And those that have been watching since the start, I don't know if you've noticed or not, but I finally got rid of the watermark. I used the Insta360 Go 3S camera, and it automatically had the watermark on it, and I didn't realize that there was a setting you could just turn it off, which, in my opinion, makes it look more professional. But in this part of the video, I'm going behind the actual DPF now to take a bracket off. There's one that secures it up under there. There's 4 bolts, or 14 millimeter. And here I'm just removing the clamps that secure the DPF to the frame, which I was curious because there's 2 of them, and then they were both loose, and the DPF was just sitting there. You could sit there and rock it back and forth, which is kind of alarming. And there's 2 ears on top of the DPF up there. You have to make sure you drop it far enough down so you don't get it caught on the cab up there, but that's it. And I also found that there's a crack in the muffler that you couldn't see until after I took the depth dozer out, which that'll have to be replaced as well. During regions when they have the cracks like that, or they'll swell real wide open, and then it'll be really easy to see it in, but they'll cause a lot of issues. And when I have parts that are going to go back together for sure, that I know, I like to mark my clamp orientation. So like the little opening in the clamp, I mark with a paint marker. That way I know where to put my new clamp when I get it. But here in a second, I'll go ahead and pull the DPF, and I confirmed that it's got multiple pinholes, and confirmed that it was passing soot. It's got a buildup of DEF and soot in the muffler down there, so that confirms my suspicion. But unfortunately, I was not able to get footage of the actual DPF to show y'all. I ended up having to leave. But that brings us to the end of the day, y'all. I appreciate y'all for watching. If you stuck around this long, please make sure to like, comment, let me know any of your thoughts or whatever on it. I appreciate anything. And see y'all guys on the next one.